My name is Liv, and I'm completely blown away by your support. By watching all the way through, you help fuel the next chapter of our journey. Your likes, comments, and shares on my videos are what keep this channel alive. They tell me what you enjoy and what keeps you up at night, so I can keep making better content for you. Your support means everything.
Now, let's start our podcast.
Come, my little ones. The garden welcomes you.
My name is not Maya Ellison. That is what they called me when they found me wandering a highway in 1993 with no memory and blood on my hands. But my real name is Cassandra Kelly, and I was one of 15 children who disappeared on a field trip in 1986. I should not remember this. They made sure I would not remember. But the dreams, they never stopped. And now, 39 years later, they found the bus, found the others. And suddenly, the dreams are not dreams anymore. They are memories, and they are so much worse than I ever imagined. I need to tell someone the truth before they find me, before they realize I remember, before they finish what they started all those years ago. Because they never stopped watching, they never stopped waiting. And now that the bus has been found, they know someone talked. Let me start from the beginning, the real beginning. Not the story I told the police, not the version that made it into the news, the truth. May 19th, 1986. I was 14 years old, too old for elementary school. But I'd been held back twice because of learning difficulty. At least, that is what they told everyone. The truth was simpler and darker. My parents did not want me around. Keeping me in elementary school meant I was someone else's problem for longer. I was on that bus because I had nowhere else to go. There were 15 of us, 12 kids from grades 3 through 5, and 3 older ones like me who did not quite fit anywhere. We were the forgotten ones, the kids whose parents signed the permission slips without reading them. The ones nobody would miss right away. I remember everything about that morning. The yellow paint peeling off the bus. The smell of diesel and old vinyl seats. The driver, Mr. Davis, who kept checking his watch like he was waiting for something. And Miss Atwell, the substitute teacher nobody had seen before, with her strange pale eyes, and the way she smiled without moving her mouth. Field trip to Morning Lake Nature Camp, she kept saying. Fresh air, learning experiences, a chance to see how nature really works. The way she said nature made my skin crawl, like it was not a place, like it was a process. We drove for 2 hours, longer than it should have taken. The roads got narrower, the trees got thicker, and somewhere along the way, I realized we were not heading to any campground I had ever heard of. Miss Atwell, I said, from the back of the bus, are we lost? She turned around slowly, too slowly, like her neck was not quite connected. Right. Lost? She smiled that terrible smile. No, Cassandra, we're exactly where we need to be. That is when I noticed Mr. Davis had pulled over. We were at a fork in the road, no signs. No markers, just trees and darkness, and a man standing by the side of the road, waiting. He was tall, bearded, wore clothes that looked like they were from another time. a long coat, a wide-brimmed hat. And when he stepped onto the bus, the temperature dropped. I could see my breath. "Good morning, children," he said. His voice was wrong. Too many layers, like multiple people speaking at once. "My name is Father Elijah, and I have been waiting for you." One of the younger kids, Nora, asked the question. I was too scared to ask. "Who are you? Where are we going?" He knelt down in the aisle, still towering over her, even crouched. He placed a cold hand on her cheek. "You are going home," he said, "to a place where names do not matter, where the world cannot hurt you, where you will be remade into something pure." That is when I knew we were not coming back. The bus drove deeper into the forest, off-road now, bouncing over roots and rocks, through water that should have been too deep, past trees that seemed to move, when I was not looking directly at them. And then we arrived, not at a campground, at a compound. A ring of wooden buildings surrounded by a high fence, guard towers at the corners, but nobody in them. Just cameras, watching, always watching. "Welcome to the sanctuary," Father Elijah said, as the bus doors opened. "You are the chosen, the blessed, and starting now, you belong to us." They separated us immediately, boys to one building, girls to another, the younger ones to a third. I was put with two other older girls in a small cabin with boarded windows and a single door that locked from the outside. That first night, I heard the singing, not from people, from the forest, multiple voices, harmonizing in a language I did not know, but somehow understood. They were singing about transformation, about becoming, about doors opening in the flesh of the world. One of the girls, Marcy, started crying. The other, Kimmy, just stared at the wall and rocked back and forth. I tried the door, locked. I tried the boards on the windows, nailed tight. I screamed for help. Nobody came, but something answered. From the forest, a sound like laughter, like approval. The next morning, they gave us new names. "Your old names were poison," Father Elijah explained, as we stood in a circle around a fire pit. "They connected you to a world that did not want you, that forgot you. Here, you will be renamed, reborn, reformed." He pointed at me. You will be silenced because you talk too much." I opened my mouth to protest. He raised a hand. The air left my lungs. I could not breathe, could not speak, could not scream. "Silence," he repeated, and I understood that was not just my name. That was my punishment. He gave names to all of us. Dove, glory, obedience, peace. Each one a command, each one a prison. And then he explained the rules. We could not speak unless spoken to. We could not write our real names. We could not draw anything from our old lives. We could not sing songs from before. We could not remember. "Memory is infection," he said. "An infection must be burned away." That is when I saw the room through a gap in one of the buildings. A small concrete cell with metal walls and no light. The garden, they called it. That is where they put you, if you remembered. If you spoke out of turn, if you tried to leave. I saw a boy dragged into the garden that first week. He had tried to write his real name in the dirt. They kept him in there for 3 days. When he came out, he could not walk right, could not look at anyone, could not remember anything at all, not even his face. Time stopped meaning anything. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. They fed us food that made us compliant, made us forget, made us stop asking questions. But I never ate it. I hid it, fed it to the forests, stayed hungry, stayed sharp, stayed me. I started drawing in secret, charcoal on scraps of wood, images of what I saw, the rituals, the punishments, the children who stopped being children and became something else, something hollow. I hid the drawings, buried them, left them as clues for whoever might find us, because I knew, even then, we were not the first, and we would not be the last. By year 2, half the children had forgotten their real names. They answered to Dove and Glory and Obedience without question. They sang the songs. They obeyed the commands. They smiled when Father Elijah touched their faces with his cold, cold hands. But not all of us, Kimmy remembered. Marcy remembered. Nora, the little girl with the missing tooth, she remembered everything. "We have to get out," she whispered to me one night, "before they make us forget forever." "How?" I asked. "The fence is electrified. The forest goes on forever. And even if we get away, where do we go? We do not even know where we are." She pulled something from under her mattress, a compass, stolen from Father Elijah's office. "South," she said. "There's a road," I heard them talking, 15 miles south, if we can make it there. We never got the chance, because that week someone betrayed us. I do not know who. Maybe one of the boys. Maybe one of the transformed ones, who could not help but obey. But Father Elijah knew about the compass, knew about the plan, knew about my drawing. They dragged me to the garden. "Silence," he said, standing over me in that terrible darkness. "You were supposed to forget. You were supposed to become clean. But you held on. You remembered. You recorded." He crouched down. I could not see his face in the black, but I could feel his breath. Cold as winter, smelling like earth and rot. "Do you know what we do to children who will not forget?" I did not answer, could not answer. "We help them," he whispered. "We make them forget everything, their names, their faces, their souls. And then we set them free, empty, clean, perfect." He placed his hand on my forehead, and I felt it, something crawling under my skin, behind my eyes, in my thoughts, trying to pull me apart from the inside. I screamed, or I tried to, but no sound came out, only that same terrible singing from the forest, like it was coming from inside my own throat. I do not know how long I was in there, days, weeks, time stopped existing. There was only the dark and the cold and the feeling of being slowly erased. But I held on. I held on to one image, one drawing I had made and buried in the roots of a tree. Outside the compound, a girl running, arms outstretched, reaching for light. That drawing kept me alive, kept me, even when they tried to take everything else. When they finally let me out, I was not the same, could not walk right, could not talk right, could not remember what my face looked like in a mirror. But I remembered my name, Cassandra, not Silence, Cassandra. And I remembered the plan. Year 3, that is when it happened, the uprising. Some of the older kids, the ones who had not been fully transformed, they set fire to the main building, used the chaos to break down the fence, run. I ran with them. We scattered into the forest. Some went east, some went west. I went south, toward the road, toward freedom. Behind me I could hear screaming, gunshots, the singing getting louder and angrier, and Father Elijah's voice booming through the trees. "You cannot leave. You are ours, forever." But I kept running, through branches that tore my skin, through streams that froze my bones, through darkness that went on, and on, and on. I ran for hours, maybe days. I do not remember. Time had stopped meaning anything. When I finally collapsed, I was on a highway. Asphalt, cars, civilization. A truck driver found me, called the police. They asked me who I was. I could not remember. They asked me where I came from. I could not remember. They asked me what happened. I could not remember. Because that is what Father Elijah did to me. In the garden, he took the memories, not all of them. Just enough, just the parts that could lead anyone back to the sanctuary. So when they asked my name, all I could say was I do not know. They called me Jane Doe, number 19, put me in foster care. Eventually, I was adopted by a couple in Morning Lake. They gave me a new name, Maya Ellison, and I tried to be Maya, tried to forget Cassandra, tried to forget silence, tried to forget the sanctuary and Father Elijah and the 15 children who vanished with me. But the dreams never stopped, and deep down, I always knew some of them were still out there, still trapped, still waiting. I opened a bookstore in Morning Lake, built a life, tried to be normal, but I could never shake the feeling that I was being watched. That somewhere in the forest, the sanctuary was still there, still operating, still taking children. And I was right, because 39 years later, they found the bus, buried in the woods, half crushed, empty except for bones. 17 sets of remains, and my drawings hidden in a backpack, a message from the past. When the sheriff showed me the photos, everything came back, not slowly, all at once, like a dam breaking. I remembered Nora, Timmy, Marcy, the boys whose names were taken, the ones who tried to escape, the ones who were caught, the ones who forgot, and the ones who are still there, still alive, still waiting. 9 children are still missing, not dead missing. Because they did not escape, they did not die. They transformed. They became part of the sanctuary. Part of Father Elijah's perfect vision of obedience and silence and emptied humanity. I know where they are. I have always known. In the place we were never supposed to talk about. The second compound, the underground place, the final garden. That is where they take the ones who cannot forget. The ones who resist too hard. The ones who remember their names. They do not kill them, they just change them until they are not children anymore. Until they are not human anymore. Until they are something else entirely. And I think I was supposed to be one of them. I think I was supposed to go to the final garden and never come out, but I escaped. And now they know. Because ever since the bus was found, I have been seeing them again, standing outside my bookstore, standing in the woods, standing at the foot of my bed when I wake up at night. Figures in gray robes, faces hidden, watching, waiting. And last week, I found something on my doorstep, a drawing, my drawing. The one I buried 39 years ago, the girl running toward the light. Except now, someone had added something, in red ink, words across the bottom. She never made it. She is still running. And we are still watching. I do not know how much time I have, but I know they are coming for me. To finish what they started, to put me back in the garden, and make me forget for good. So, I am writing this, leaving it where someone will find it, along with a map. A map to the second compound, the underground place, the final garden, because 9 children are still there, and they deserve to be found. They deserve to be freed. They deserve to remember who they were before the sanctuary took them. Please, if you are reading this, If you find this, go to the coordinates I have written at the bottom. Bring help, bring light, bring whatever it takes to tear down that place and set them free. And if you see me, if you see Maya Ellison, walking through Morning Lake with empty eyes and a smile that does not move, know that they got me. Know that Cassandra is gone. Know that silence finally won. Here is what I learned in that compound, what Father Elijah taught us through pain and darkness and the slow erasure of everything we were. Some monsters do not hide in shadows. They build sanctuaries. They call themselves saviors. They take the forgotten children and promise them belonging, purpose, peace. And by the time you realize what they have really taken, your name, your face, your soul, it is too late to run. The most terrifying thing about the sanctuary was not the garden, not the singing, not even Father Elijah himself. It was how many of the children started to believe it, started to think that forgetting was freedom, that obedience was safety, that their old lives, their old names, their old selves were the real prison. And maybe that is the worst part. Not that we were taken, but that some of us chose to stay. I think about that boy who tried to write his name in the dirt. The one they put in the garden when he came out. They asked him who he was. He smiled, a real smile, not the empty ones the transformed children wore. And he said, "I'm home." That is what they took from him, not his memory, his desire to leave. They made him want to stay. I see it sometimes in my own reflection, that same smile, that same emptiness. And I wonder if I really escaped, or if part of me is still there, still in the garden, still becoming silence. The dreams are getting worse, more real, more insistent. In them, I am back at the sanctuary. But I am not running anymore. I am walking, slowly, peacefully, toward the compound, toward the singing, toward Father Elijah, who stands with his arms open wide. "Welcome home, silence," he says. "We have been waiting for you to remember, to return, to complete your transformation. And I want to run, want to scream, want to fight, but my body does not obey. It just keeps walking, keeps moving toward him, keeps surrendering. Because that is what the garden does. It does not just make you forget. It makes you want to forget. It makes forgetting feel like peace, like relief, like finally letting go of a burden you never wanted to carry. And I am so tired of carrying it, so tired of remembering. So tired of being Cassandra when being silence was so much easier. I hear them singing now, even when I am awake. Even in the middle of the day, surrounded by customers in my bookstore, I hear that terrible harmony. And part of me, the part they planted in the garden, all those years ago wants to sing along. The sheriff came by yesterday, showed me another photo, this one from the underground compound they just found. A room with desks in a circle, and in the center, a mural. A girl running, arms outstretched, reaching for light. My mural, my warning, my desperate attempt to be remembered. Except someone had painted over it, added to it. The girl is not running anymore. She is turning around, walking back into the darkness, into the singing, into the arms of something terrible and patient and waiting. And underneath, in my own handwriting from 39 years ago, new words. She came back. They always come back. The garden is patient. The garden is forever. The garden is home. I do not remember painting those words, but I know my handwriting. I know my charcoal technique. I know it is mine. Which means at some point, after I escaped, before I forgot, I went back. And I do not remember it. The sheriff is organizing a search party to find the final garden, to find the missing 9. To end this once and for all. But I know the truth. You cannot end it, because the sanctuary was never about a place. It was about a process, about finding the children nobody wanted, nobody would miss, nobody would fight for. And there are always more children like that, always more forgotten ones, always more who will disappear on field trips and camping adventures and family vacations, and nobody will question it. Nobody will search, nobody will remember. Because that is what we are good at, as a society, forgetting, moving on, letting go. The sanctuary just makes it official. I'm leaving this in the bookstore, hidden in a copy of Peter Pan. Because if anyone understands what the sanctuary does, it is that story, the place where children never grow up, never change, never leave. The place where forgetting is freedom and memory is pain. The place where you trade your name for belonging. Neverland, the garden, the sanctuary, they are all the same place, and they are all still out there, still singing, still waiting, still taking. And now they are coming for me, because I remembered, because I talked, because I tried to warn people. So, if you find this, if you read this, if you understand what I am trying to say, please, find the 9, find the final garden, set them free, before they forget they want to be free. And if you see me, if you see Maya walking into the woods, with a smile on her face, an emptiness in her eyes, do not follow me. Do not try to save me. Just remember that once, a long time ago, I was Cassandra Kelly. I was 14 years old, and I tried to keep my name. The singing is so loud now, so beautiful, so peaceful, and I am so tired of fighting it. Maybe Father Elijah was right. Maybe forgetting is not erasure. Maybe it is freedom. Maybe I will finally find peace in the garden. Maybe I will finally stop running. Maybe I will finally come home.
I quit working for Delta Airlines 3 months ago. I have never told anyone the real reason why. Not my wife. Not my therapist. Not even the NTSB. Investigators who interviewed me for hours in that sterile government office. But I need to tell someone because what happened on Flight 447 was not turbulence. Let me back up. My name is Peter Chen, and I had been a flight attendant for Delta for 8 years. Good job, decent pay, saw the world. I worked international routes mostly, the long hauls where you could rack up serious hours and make real money. July 30th started like any other shift. Salt Lake City to Amsterdam. Overnight flight, half-full cabin, easy run. I remember being in a good mood that day. My daughter had just gotten accepted to college. I was thinking about how many more shifts like this I would need to cover her tuition. I was thinking about normal things. I should have paid attention to the passenger in seat 23C. We took off around 8 p.m. Routine departure, clear skies. The captain, a guy named Davidson, I had flown with dozens of times, came on the intercom with the usual speech. Flying time, weather conditions all standard. He mentioned we might see some storms over Wyoming, but said we would route around them. Nothing unusual. About an hour into the flight, I was in the galley preparing the drink cart when I noticed her. She was maybe 60 years old, gray hair pulled back tight, wearing this long black coat that seemed too heavy for July. But that was not what caught my attention. It was the way she was staring out the window, just staring, not blinking, her reflection in the glass showing this expression I could not quite read. Fear, anticipation. I walked over with my professional smile. "Can I get you anything, ma'am? Water? A blanket? She did not look at me. Her eyes stayed fixed on the darkness outside. "It is coming," she whispered. I laughed it off. Long flights make people weird. The drink service, yes ma'am, we will be around shortly. No. Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold. "It is coming, the thing in the clouds." I gently pulled away, made some excuse about needing to check on other passengers. When I glanced back, she was still staring out that window, her lips moving like she was counting something. That was the first sign I ignored. The second sign came about 30 minutes later. Davidson turned off the seatbelt sign. I heard the chime, saw the light go off. Standard procedure once we hit cruising altitude and clear air. My colleague Jennifer and I started rolling the drink cart down the aisle. People were reading, watching movies. A few were already asleep. That is when I noticed the temperature. It was getting cold. Not the usual airplane cold where you grab a blanket. This was different. I could see my breath. Just for a second, just a little puff of vapor. Then it was gone. I looked at Jennifer. "Did you feel that?" She shrugged. "Feel what?" Maybe I imagined it. We made it about halfway down the aisle when the lights flickered. Just once. The cabin went dark for maybe half a second, then came back on. A few passengers looked up, but most did not notice. The hum of the engines never changed. Everything seemed fine. Except the woman in 23C was smiling now. Still staring out the window, but smiling. I wheeled the cart to her row. "What can I get you to drink?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were completely black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye. Like someone had filled them with ink. "Nothing," she said softly. "I do not need anything anymore. None of us do." My hand started shaking. I told myself it was the lighting, the shadows, my mind playing tricks. I moved on to the next row, but I could feel her watching me. That smile never leaving her face. Then the captain's voice came over the intercom. But it sounded wrong, strained. "Folks, this is Captain Davidson. We are making a slight course adjustment to avoid some weather ahead. Might get a little bumpy. Nothing to worry about. Flight attendants, go ahead and continue your service." Jennifer and I kept pushing the cart. But I noticed something. Out the windows on the left side of the plane I could see lightning. Not normal lightning. It was green. Bright, almost neon green, arcing between clouds that looked too thick, too solid. And they were moving against the wind. I have flown through hundreds of storms. Clouds do not move like that. They do not pulse. They do not seem to breathe. "Jennifer," I whispered. "We should probably secure the cart," he said to continue service. "I know, but..." That is when it hit. Not turbulence. Not at first. First, there was silence. Complete, total silence. The engine noise cut out. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the hum of the ventilation system went dead. The entire plane went quiet for maybe 3 seconds. 3 seconds of perfect, suffocating silence. Then, I felt it. A pull. Like someone had grabbed me by the chest and yanked upward with impossible strength. My feet left the floor. Not a little. I was airborne, floating, and for a split second I thought we were in free fall. But we were not falling. We were being lifted. The drink cart shot toward the ceiling. Passengers who had unbuckled were torn from their seats, rising like balloons. I saw a man hit the overhead compartment so hard the plastic cracked. I saw Jennifer's body go up, then slam back down on the metal cart with a sound I will never forget. Then the plane dropped. No, we were not dropped. We were thrown. I felt my stomach lurch into my throat as we plummeted. But it was not natural. It felt like something had grabbed the entire aircraft and hurled it downward with rage. The cabin lights went out completely. In the darkness, I could hear screaming, the crash of luggage breaking free, the wet sound of bodies hitting metal and plastic. The emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in that sickly red glow. That is when I saw her. The woman in 23C was still in her seat, still buckled, still smiling, but she was not being thrown around. While everyone else was being tossed like rag dolls, she sat perfectly still, that black-eyed smile frozen on her face. And she was whispering something. I could not hear it over the screaming, but I could see her lips moving, rapid and rhythmic, like she was reciting a prayer or a summoning. The plane lurched again. Not up and down this time. Sideways. I felt the entire aircraft tilt. 40 degrees, maybe more, banking so hard that I slid across the floor and slammed into a row of seats. Through the windows I saw the wing dip down at an impossible angle, pointing almost straight at the earth below. That is when I saw it. Outside the window, in the clouds, a face. Not a cloud formation that looked like a face. Not my imagination. A face. Massive. Miles wide. Formed from the storm itself, from the green lightning and the black vapor. It had eyes, holes really, vast empty spaces where eyes should be, and they were looking at us, watching us, studying us like we were insects. And it was smiling, the same smile as the woman in 23C. I scrambled to my feet as the plane righted itself, only to be thrown forward again. This time I saw passengers hit the ceiling with so much force that the plastic panels cracked and fell away. Blood was everywhere. A man's arm was bent at an angle that made my vision blur. Jennifer was not moving. 2 minutes. I know it was 2 minutes because I was staring at my watch the whole time, praying for it to end. 2.5 minutes of being thrown up and down and sideways, of hearing bones break, and people scream and metal groan under stress. It was never designed to handle. But the worst part was not the violence. It was the intelligence behind it. This was not random. Each impact was timed. Each throw was calculated. Whatever was doing this to us was not just powerful. It was deliberate. It was playing with us. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The plane leveled out. The shaking ceased. The engine noise returned to its normal hum. The cabin lights flickered back on. For about 10 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the crying started. I pulled myself up, my entire body shaking. I checked Jennifer. She was alive, but her leg was broken, bone showing through her uniform. Passengers were moaning, calling for help. Blood dripped from the overhead compartments. The entire cabin looked like a war zone. I stumbled toward the cockpit, had to know what the pilots were thinking, what they saw. That is when I passed 23C. The seat was empty. The seatbelt was still buckled, still fastened tight across the empty seat. But the woman was gone. Vanished. I checked the bathrooms. I checked every row. I asked passengers if they saw her move. Nobody had seen anything. She was just gone. Davidson's voice came over the intercom. Shaky this time, real fear in his voice. Folks, we are diverting to Minneapolis. Emergency services will be waiting. Everyone, please remain seated. I made it back to the galley and sat down hard, my back against the cold metal wall. That is when I noticed my hands. They were covered in blood, but I did not know whose. Could have been mine. Could have been someone else's. We landed in Minneapolis 40 minutes later. Paramedics rushed onto the plane. 24 people were evaluated. 18 went to the hospital. Jennifer had 2 broken ribs along with her leg. 2 crew members had serious spinal injuries. The NTSB interviewed all of us the next week. They showed us radar images, weather data, flight recorder information. They explained the physics: severe convective turbulence, wind shear, atmospheric instability. They had explanations for everything. Except they did not. They could not explain the 3 seconds of total silence before it started. They could not explain why the flight recorders showed readings that should have torn the plane apart. They could not explain why every single passenger in that section described feeling like they were being watched. And they definitely could not explain the woman in 23cc. I checked the manifest myself. I got a friend in ticketing to pull the records. Seat 23C was never assigned. Never purchased. The computer showed it as empty the entire flight. But I saw her. I felt her ice-cold fingers on my wrist. I saw those black eyes. And I know what I saw outside that window. The official report came out last month. Severe thunderstorm turbulence. Pilot error in not avoiding the storm system. Recommendations for better weather radar. Case closed. But I know the truth. We flew through something that was not supposed to be there. Something that noticed us. Something that wanted to see what would happen if it played with us for 2.5 minutes. And when it got bored, it let us go. I quit Delta 2 weeks after the investigation ended. I could not do it anymore. Every time I would step onto a plane, I would check the passenger list. Terrified I would see another empty seat with someone sitting in it. My wife thinks I had a breakdown from the trauma. My therapist says I am experiencing post-traumatic stress with dissociative elements. They are probably right. But sometimes, late at night when I am trying to fall asleep, I hear that silence again. That complete, suffocating silence that came right before everything went wrong. And in that silence I hear whispering. The same rhythmic prayer the woman was reciting. I cannot make out the words, but I know what it means. It means something is listening. Here is what I learned that night, 37,000 feet above Wyoming. We are not alone up there. The sky is not empty. There are things in the clouds, in the storms, in the spaces between spaces. Old things. Patient things. Things that watch us fly through their domain, and occasionally they reach out. Most of the time, we are lucky. We experience what we call turbulence and we land safely and we never think about it again. But sometimes, if the conditions are right, if someone opens the door, we see what is really there. I still fly commercial when I have to, but I always check the passenger list. I always keep my seatbelt fastened, and I never ever look out the window when we enter a storm. Because some things, once you have seen them, never stop watching you back. And somewhere out there over Wyoming there is a woman with black eyes sitting in an empty seat, whispering to the thing in the clouds, waiting for the next flight to pass through. I pray it is not yours.
The accident happened 9 months ago. A simple procedure. Routine surgery to remove a cyst from her right arm. Eleanor remembered sitting in the operating room at Boston General. Remembered the anesthesiologist's calm voice telling her to count backward from 10. 10, 9, 8. And then she wasn't in her body anymore. The real horror isn't being replaced. It's realizing you've been gone for so long that when something else takes your place, nobody notices. Not your friends, not your doctors, not even you. Eleanor thought the worst part of her life was already over. The guilt was supposed to fade with the scenery. That's what Dr. Patterson told her during their last session. Start fresh. New town, new job, new life. Leave Boston behind. Leave the memories behind. Leave the operating room behind. But trauma doesn't work that way. She bought the house on Maple Street in a small town called Ashwood, 2 hours north of the city. The real estate agent, a nervous woman named Beth, had been almost apologetic about the price. It's been on the market for 8 months, she'd said, avoiding eye contact. The previous owner, well, she passed away inside. Natural causes, of course, but people are superstitious. Eleanor wasn't superstitious. She was practical. She needed cheap, and cheap meant overlooking things like death and decay and the faint smell of mothballs that clung to every room. The job as a seamstress was supposed to help, stitching fabric, mending tears, creating something beautiful from scraps. She'd always been good with her hands, steady, precise. Maybe working with needles and thread would stitch her back together too. Put the pieces of Eleanor back in the right order. The house came with furniture. Most of it was trash. Water-damaged dressers, a sagging couch, boxes of yellowed books. But in what would become her workspace, standing in the corner like a silent sentinel, was a tailor's dummy. Victorian era by the look of it. The fabric stretched over its form was the color of old bone, yellowed and stained in places she didn't want to examine too closely. It had no face, just a smooth blank oval where a head should be. No arms. Just metal rods extending from the shoulders like the skeleton of something that had never fully formed. But somehow, it felt like it was watching. Eleanor should have thrown it out, should have dragged it to the curb with the rest of the junk. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the seamstress in her, recognizing a tool of the trade. Maybe it was something else. She called it the witness, because it seemed to know everything about her. The accident had happened 9 months ago. It was supposed to be simple. A routine procedure to remove a cyst from her right arm. Nothing dangerous. Nothing complicated. Eleanor remembered everything about that day with painful clarity. She remembered sitting in the operating room at Boston General. Remembered the cold air on her skin. The bright lights overhead making her squint. She remembered the anesthesiologist leaning over her, his voice calm and professional, telling her to count backward from 10. Just relax, Eleanor. You'll be asleep before you reach 1. She started counting. 10, 9, 8. Her eyelids grew heavy. The room started to blur. 7, 6, and then something shifted. She wasn't in her body anymore. One moment she was lying on the table, feeling the cold pressure of the IV in her arm. The next moment, she was above it all, floating. Watching herself from somewhere near the ceiling, she was floating above it. Watching, she saw her own face, slack and peaceful under the mask. Saw the surgeon's hands moving with practiced precision. Saw the bright overhead lights casting harsh shadows across the sterile room. She heard everything. The beep of machines, the murmur of voices, the young nurse adjusting the tourniquet, her hands trembling slightly. "I've never done this before," the nurse whispered to the doctor. "It's fine," the doctor replied, not looking up. "I'll talk you through it." And then something went wrong. Eleanor watched the nurse's face drain of color, watched her stumble backward, hands shaking, watched the monitor scream warnings in sharp electronic shrieks. "Oh, God," the nurse gasped. "Oh, God, I killed her. I killed her." The nurse ran from the room. Eleanor tried to scream, but she had no voice, no body, just consciousness, suspended above the chaos, watching the medical team scramble to stabilize the body that used to be hers. She woke up 3 hours later in recovery. Her arm was bandaged. The surgery was successful. Everyone smiled and told her how lucky she was. But Eleanor didn't feel lucky. She felt absent. The doctors called it depersonalization, a trauma response. The mind's way of protecting itself from overwhelming stress. Dr. Patterson prescribed medication, recommended therapy, assured her it would pass, but didn't pass. 9 months later, Eleanor still felt like she was watching her life from above, like she was a ghost haunting her own body. The medication helped with the panic attacks, but it couldn't fix the fundamental wrongness she felt every time she looked in a mirror. She wasn't sure the woman looking back was really her. Eleanor set up her workspace on the second floor in what had once been a bedroom. Large windows let in afternoon light. She arranged her sewing machine on an old oak table, organized her threads and fabrics, hung her measuring tape on a hook by the door. The witness stood in the corner, watching. She tried to ignore it at first, focused on her work. She'd taken on small jobs from the local dry cleaner, hemming pants, repairing torn seams, altering dresses. Simple work, mindless work, the kind that let her hands move while her mind drifted. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. It started small. Eleanor would leave her scissors on the cutting table when she finished work for the evening. But the next morning, they'd be somewhere else, tucked into the seam of the witness's torso, or balanced on the metal rod where an arm should be. She told herself she was forgetting. The depersonalization made her foggy, made her lose time. But then other things started happening. The room where she worked was always colder when she faced the witness. Not just cool, cold. The kind of cold that seeped into bones and made breath visible in the air. She'd turn away to work on a garment, and the temperature would normalize. Turn back, and the chill would return, sharp and immediate. Sometimes, late at night when she worked by lamplight, a smell would drift through the room. Faint, chemical, like formaldehyde, mixed with dust and decay. It would linger around the witness for a moment, then vanish as if it had never been there at all. Eleanor tried to rationalize it. Old houses had strange smells. Old fabric held odors. There was a logical explanation for everything. But logic couldn't explain what she heard one night in early October. She was working late, hand-stitching a hem on a wedding dress. The only sounds were the tick of the clock on the wall and the soft whisper of thread through fabric. And then a voice, soft, rasping, coming from the direction of the witness. "Let go." Eleanor's hands froze. Her needle hung in the air, thread pulled taut. "Hello?" she called out, her voice cracking. Silence. Just the tick of the clock and the creak of floorboard settling. Eleanor laughed, a thin, brittle sound. She was losing it, really losing it this time. Dr. Patterson would probably recommend inpatient treatment if she told him she was hearing voices from a dressmaker's dummy. But the witness stood there in the corner, blank and still, and somehow Eleanor knew it had spoken. The dummy was no longer still. It started subtly. Eleanor would look away for a moment, just a moment, to check a measurement or adjust her lamp. And when she looked back, the witness's head would be tilted, just slightly, just enough to notice. The first time it happened, Eleanor's heart stopped. She stared at the dummy, her breath coming in short gasps. The smooth oval head was angled to the left, as if listening to something only it could hear. Eleanor stood frozen for a full minute before she moved. Slowly, carefully, she approached the witness. Her hands shook as she reached out and straightened its head. "Just the house settling," she whispered to herself. "The floor's uneven." It shifted, but the floor was level, and the witness was heavy, too heavy to move from vibrations or settle it. It happened again the next day, and the day after that. Eleanor would turn away, and when she looked back, the head would be tilted in a different direction, sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right. Once, it was angled forward, as if the witness was leaning in to examine her work. She stopped straightening it, started avoiding eye contact with the blank oval face, and then she found the scar. Eleanor was draping a new dress form over the witness one morning when she noticed something. A mark on its right side, just below where a shoulder would be. A thin line, carefully stitched with black thread. A surgical scar. Eleanor's blood turned to ice. She stared at the mark, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. Slowly, so slowly, she rolled up her right sleeve. There in her arm was the faded pink line where the surgeon had cut into her skin 9 months ago. The cyst removal. The surgery that had left her floating above her own body, watching from somewhere else. The dummy had the same scar, in the exact same place. No, Eleanor whispered. No, this isn't possible. She grabbed the witness, shaking it, searching for an explanation. The fabric was old. Maybe the previous owner had been a seamstress too. Maybe she'd practiced surgical stitching on the dummy. But the thread was fresh, new. The stitches were still sharp and clean. Someone had put it there recently. Eleanor stumbled backward, her chest tight, her vision narrowing. A panic attack. She knew the signs. She fumbled for her medication bottle, swallowed 2 pills dry, and forced herself to breathe. Out, in, out, in. When the panic subsided, she looked at the witness again. Its head was turned toward her. Watching. Eleanor called Marcus that night. Marcus Chen had been her friend since high school. They'd lost touch for a few years, but after the surgery, after the divorce, after everything fell apart, he'd been there. He lived in Portland now, about 40 minutes from Ashwood, and came immediately when she called. Eleanor, what's wrong? His voice was warm, concerned, real. It's the dummy, she said, her words tumbling over each other. Marcus, it's moving, and it has my scar, the surgical scar. It knows things it shouldn't know. Marcus held her hands, his grip solid and grounding. Eleanor, listen to me. You've been under enormous stress. The surgery, the move, starting over. It's normal to feel disoriented. I'm not imagining it. I believe that you believe it, Marcus said gently. But maybe it's time to talk to Dr. Patterson again. Or find a new therapist here. Someone local. Eleanor pulled away, anger flashing through her fear. I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were. But you need help. Real help. She wanted to argue. Wanted to drag him upstairs and show him the witness. And prove she wasn't losing her mind. But maybe he was right. Maybe her brain was creating patterns where none existed. Maybe the depersonalization was getting worse. Marcus stayed the night, sleeping in the guest room downstairs. Eleanor felt safer with him there, less alone. But at 2:47 a.m., she woke to the sound of footsteps above her bedroom. Slow, deliberate, coming from her workspace. Eleanor lay frozen in bed, her heart hammering. Marcus was downstairs. She was alone up here. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice, soft and familiar. Marcus's voice. Soon, he whispered. Very soon. Eleanor crept from her bed and moved to the stairs. The workspace door was open, light spilling into the hallway. She peered around the corner. Marcus stood in front of the witness. He wasn't looking at it like it was an object. He was looking at it like it was someone. His hand rested on its shoulder, gentle and reverent. Just a little longer, he murmured. She's almost ready. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. Marcus turned, and for just a moment, his eyes weren't Marcus's eyes. They were black, empty, like pinholes in fabric. Then he blinked, and they were normal again. Brown, worn, human. Eleanor stumbled backward into her bedroom and locked the door. She didn't sleep after that. When morning came, Marcus acted completely normal. Made coffee, talked about the weather, asked if she'd slept well. Eleanor lied and said she had. She waited until he left, then went to her workspace. The witness had changed again. New stitches had appeared. A line across its torso, like a zipper. Another along its left side. The black thread gleamed in the morning light, fresh and precise, and pinned to its neck a small piece of paper. Eleanor's hands trembled as she unpinned it. The note was in her handwriting, shaky, rushed, desperate. My name is Eleanor. I am leaving this body soon. She didn't remember writing it. Eleanor screamed. She grabbed her phone, started to dial 911, then stopped. What would she tell them? That a dressmaker's dummy was stealing her identity? That her best friend was, what? Possessed? Helping something replace her? They'd commit her, lock her in a psychiatric ward. And maybe that's exactly what should happen. Maybe she really was losing her mind. Eleanor looked at the witness, at the stitches, at the surgical scar, at the blank oval face that somehow seemed to be smiling now. And she realized she couldn't remember her mother's face. The thought hit her like a punch to the chest. She tried to picture her mother, the woman who'd raised her, who'd held her after the surgery, who'd helped her pack for the move to Ashwood. Nothing, just blankness. Eleanor ran to her phone, scrolled through her photos, found pictures of her mother, stared at them. The woman in the photos was a stranger. No, Eleanor whispered. No, please. She tried to remember other things. Her favorite color, her childhood dog's name, the street where she grew up. All of it fading, slipping away like water through her fingers. The pieces of Eleanor were disappearing, and the witness was collecting them. The next 3 days were a blur of lost time and fractured memory. Eleanor would find herself standing in front of the witness with no memory of walking there. She'd discover new notes in her handwriting, saying things she didn't remember thinking. I'm tired. I want to rest. Let her have it. The dummy moved closer. She'd measure the distance each morning, and every morning it was closer to where she worked, closer to where she sat, closer to her. And her reflection in the windows was wrong. The woman looking back had Eleanor's face, Eleanor's hair, Eleanor's clothes. But the eyes were different, flatter and emptier. Like something was wearing Eleanor's appearance but didn't quite understand how to use it yet. Marcus came back on the 4th day. He found Eleanor on the floor of her workspace, curled up beside the witness, weeping. I can't remember, she sobbed. Marcus, I can't remember who I am. He helped her up, his touch gentle. I know, Eleanor, I know. The dummy, it's taking pieces of me. It's trying to replace me. Marcus nodded slowly. You told me, but Eleanor, you need to stop fighting it. His words hung in the air like ice. What did you say? Marcus stepped back. The concern in his eyes drained away, replaced by something cold and empty. He smiled. Slow, deliberate. Wrong. Don't worry, darling, he said softly. The new one is much better at being you. Eleanor's legs gave out. She grabbed the edge of her work table to stay upright. What'd you do? I helped, Marcus said simply, his voice flat and emotionless. You were never supposed to come back from that surgery, Eleanor. Your consciousness, it left, floated away. But your body kept breathing, kept walking around, empty vessel. He gestured to the witness with something like pride. She's been waiting, patient, learning. I've been teaching her. Your handwriting, your memories, your mannerisms. Every stitch, every thread, it's all practice. Eleanor's mind reeled. That's insane. Is it? Marcus tilted his head, mirroring the way the witness tilted its blank face. You feel it, don't you? The emptiness, the disconnection. You felt it since you woke up in that recovery room. Because the real Eleanor, she never came back down. He took a step closer. You're just the echo, the residual energy clinging to a body that doesn't want you anymore. Eleanor looked at her hands, at her reflection in the window, at the witness standing beside her, its stitched scars gleaming in the afternoon light. She tried to remember her first kiss, her wedding day, the taste of her favorite food. Nothing, just fragments, pieces that didn't quite fit together, memories that felt borrowed, like she'd read about them in a book rather than lived them. Please, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I don't want to disappear. Marcus's expression didn't change. You already have. He turned and walked out, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Eleanor was alone with the witness. She stared at the dummy, at its blank face and stitched scars, and the black thread that spelled out her identity in tiny, precise letters. And slowly, so slowly, the witness moved. Not a tilt this time, a full, deliberate turn of its head, facing her. Eleanor opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out, because she couldn't remember how. They found Eleanor 3 weeks later, wandering the streets of downtown Ashwood in her nightgown, confused and disoriented. She couldn't remember her address, couldn't remember her name, couldn't remember much of anything. The police took her to the hospital, ran tests, brain scans, psychiatric evaluations. Early onset dementia, the doctor said. Rare in someone so young, but not unheard of. Probably accelerated by trauma. Marcus visited every day. So supportive, so caring. He cleaned out her house, packed up her things. Most of it went to donation. The witness, he kept that, put it in storage, just in case. Eleanor never went home. She stayed in a long-term care facility in Portland, staring out windows, occasionally muttering about needles and thread and bodies left behind on operating tables. Nobody believed her. Nobody listened. But 6 months later, a new seamstress appeared in Ashwood. Her name was Eleanor Martin. She'd just moved from Boston. Quiet, talented. She rented the house on Maple Street and set up a workspace on the second floor. She was perfect, charming. Her hands were steady, her stitches precise. She never had panic attacks, never dissociated, never forgot anything. She was everything Eleanor used to be, only better. And sometimes, late at night, when she caught her reflection in the window, her eyes would flicker, just for a moment, black, empty, like pinholes in fabric. Then she'd smile, turn back to her work, and continue stitching, because the witness had finally learned how to be human. And nobody could tell the difference. Fear isn't just about what stalks us in the shadows. It's about how easily we can lose our sense of self, how trauma can hollow us out piece by piece until we're not sure what's real anymore. And in that emptiness, that vulnerability, something patient is always waiting. Something that knows how to wear your skin better than you do. Something that's been watching you, learning you, becoming you, stitch by careful stitch.